Howdy everyone, it's Reese, aka Bearman Prime, on this March the 8th. Welcome back to my Read the Bible in a Year series. Thank you again for joining me. Card in the top right hand corner for the rest of the playlist, and please hit that subscribe button, the like button, and the notification bell so you stay caught up and if you're enjoying the series. So yesterday we began our coverage of the book of Judges, how these individual stories of God raising up select people from within the nation of Israel during times when they fell into idolatry and their sinful ways and were scattered. The judges would be raised up so that they could lead Israel back, against not only against their enemies but back to God. And so yesterday we saw the story of Deborah, the judge, and now we're going to begin the story of one of the more well-known judges, I think, that is Gideon. So Gideon was a judge who fought mainly against the Midianites in his time. So today we're going to go to Judges chapter 6. We're going to go all the way from verse 1 to verse 40, okay? So strap in. It's going to be a long one. So Judges 6, starting in verse 1. Again, the Israelites did what the Lord said was wrong. So for 7 years, the Lord allowed the Midianites to defeat the Israelites. The Midianites were very powerful and were cruel to the Israelites. So the Israelites made many hiding places in the mountains. They hid their food in caves and places that were hard to find. They did that because the Midianites and Amalekites from the east always came and destroyed their crops. They camped in the land and destroyed the crops that the Israelites had planted. They ruined the crops of the Israelites as far as the land near the city of Gaza. They did not leave anything for the Israelites to eat. They did not even leave them any sheep, cattle, or donkeys. The Midianites came with their families, animals, and tents. They were like a swarm of locusts. They and their camels were too many to count. They came into the land and ruined it. The Israelites became very poor because of the Midianites. So the Israelites cried to the Lord for help. The Midianites did all these bad things, so the Israelites cried to the Lord for help. The Lord sent a prophet to them. He said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. You were slaves in the land of Egypt. I made you free and brought you out of that land. I saved you from the powerful Egyptians. Then the Canaanites hurt you, so I saved you again. I made them leave their land, and I gave their land to you. Then I said to you, I am the Lord your God. You will live in the land of the Amorites, but you must not worship their false gods. But you did not obey me." Verse 11 and 12. One time an angel of the Lord came to a place called Ophrah and sat under an oak tree. This oak tree belonged to a man named Joash from the Abiezer family. His son Gideon was beating some wheat in a winepress. He was hiding so that the Midianites could not see the wheat. The angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon and said, "The Lord be with you, brave soldier." Then Gideon said, "Pardon me, sir, but if the Lord is with us, why are we having so many troubles? We heard that he did wonderful things for our ancestors. They tell us that the Lord took them out of Egypt, but now it seems the Lord has left us and is letting the Midianites defeat us." The Lord turned toward Gideon and said, "Then use your great power and go save the Israelites from the Midianites. I am sending you to save them." But Gideon answered and said, "Pardon me, sir, how can I save Israel? My family group is the weakest in the tribe of Manasseh, and I am the youngest one in my family." The Lord answered Gideon and said, "I will be with you, so you can defeat the Midianites as easily as if they were only one man." Then Gideon said to him, "If you would, please give me some proof that you really are the Lord. But please wait here. Don't go away until I come back to you. Let me bring my offering and set it down in front of you." And the Lord said, "I will wait until you come back." So Gideon went in and cooked a young goat in boiling water. He also took about 20 pounds of flour and made bread without yeast. Then he put the meat into a basket and the broth from the meat into a pot. He brought out the meat, the broth, and the bread without yeast and gave them to the Lord under the oak tree. The angel of God said to Gideon, "Put the meat and the bread on that rock over there. Then pour the broth on it." Gideon did as he was told. The angel of the Lord had a walking stick in his hand. He touched the meat and the bread with the end of the stick, and fire jumped out of the rock and burned up the meat and the bread. Then the angel of the Lord disappeared. Then Gideon realized that he had been talking to the angel of the Lord. So he shouted, "Oh, Lord God, I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." But the Lord said to Gideon, "Calm down. Don't be afraid. You will not die." So Gideon built an altar there to worship the Lord and named it, "The Lord is Peace." It still stands in the city of Ophrah, where the Abiezer family lives. Verse 25. That same night the Lord said to Gideon, "Choose your father's best bull, the one that is 7 years old. First, use it to pull down the altar your father built to worship Baal. Also, cut down the Asherah pole beside the altar. Then build the right kind of altar for the Lord your God. Build it on this high ground. Then kill and burn the bull on this altar. Use the wood from the Asherah pole to burn your offering." So Gideon took 10 of his servants and did what the Lord had told him to do. But Gideon was afraid that his family and the men of the city might see what he was doing, so he did it all at night and not in the daytime. The men of the city got up the next morning and saw that the altar for Baal had been destroyed. They also saw that the Asherah pole had been cut down. It had been sitting next to the altar for Baal. They also saw the altar that Gideon had built, and they saw the bull that had been sacrificed on that altar. The men of the city looked at each other and asked, "Who pulled down our altar? Who cut down our Asherah pole? Who sacrificed this bull on this new altar?" They asked many questions and tried to learn who did this. Someone told them, "Gideon, son of Joash, did this." So the men of the city came to Joash and said, "You must bring your son out. He pulled down the altar for Baal, and he cut down the Asherah pole that was beside it. So your son must die." Then Joash spoke to the crowd that was standing around him. Joash said, "Are you going to take Baal's side? Are you going to rescue Baal? If anyone takes Baal's side, let him be put to death by morning. If Baal really is a god, let him defend himself when someone pulls down his altar." Joash said, "If Gideon pulled Baal's altar down, let Baal argue with him." On that day, Joash gave Gideon a new name. He called him Jerubbaal. Verse 33. The Midianites, the Amalekites, and other people from the east joined together to fight the Israelites. They went across the Jordan River and camped in the Jezreel Valley. The Spirit of the Lord filled Gideon. So Gideon blew a trumpet to call the family of Abiezer to follow him. He sent messengers to all the people of the tribe of Manasseh and told them to get their weapons and prepare for battle. Gideon also sent messengers to the tribe of Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali. The messengers took the same message to them, so they also went up to meet Gideon and his men. Then Gideon said to God, "You said that you would help me save the Israelites. Give me proof. I will put a sheepskin on the threshing floor. If there is dew only on the sheepskin while all the ground is dry, I will know that you will use me to save Israel, as you said." And that is exactly what happened. Gideon got up early the next morning and squeezed the sheepskin. He was able to drain a bowl full of water from it. Then Gideon said to God, "Don't be angry with me. Let me ask just one more thing. Let me test you one more time with the sheepskin. This time, let the sheepskin be dry while the ground around it gets wet with dew." That night, God did that very thing. Just the sheepskin was dry, but the ground around it was wet with dew. All right, so here we see the first part of that cycle I was mentioning yesterday about how Israel falls into sinful ways and idolatry. So at this time, they did what was wrong. So for 7 years, the Israelites waged war or were fought by the Midianites. Midianites were the worshippers of this other false god called Baal. And so Israel was infected with their idolatrous ways. They began to build altars to this false god, these Asherah poles that was used in their rituals and whatnot. And so we see God visiting this man Gideon. Gideon's a member of the half tribe of Manasseh, and apparently he's fairly insignificant among not only his family but the tribe. And God is using him, seemingly the least of people. That's a phrase that we should remember. The least of people to lead Israel against the Midianites and back to God. And just one other note, credit to Joash, Gideon's father. It said that Joash had built the altar to Baal originally. But now we also see that Joash stood up for his son after he had torn down the altar and the Asherah pole. He dared this Baal to, come down and take care of his own problems himself if he's got a problem with it. And he gave him the name Jerubbaal, which is a Hebrew way of saying let Baal argue. So, he's kind of just, poking them with the stick there. And so now Gideon is gathering the men from around him from Manasseh, Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, preparing to fight against the Midianites. So we're going to pick it up there tomorrow in chapter 7. Thank you again for joining me. I sure do appreciate it. See you tomorrow. Bye.